I'm here with Lyn Ulbricht. I want to introduce you first before you talk. She is the mother of Ross Ulbricht, who's currently incarcerated. Is that correct? Yeah, for some serious charges, which I think are completely fraudulent and should be dropped immediately. So I'll let you introduce yourself and what you're doing and what happened to your son.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Ross is serving a double life sentence with plus 40 years without the possibility of parole in a maximum security prison with violent gangs, violent people. Ross is totally nonviolent. All his charges are nonviolent. He's a first-time offender. And he's in there because the judge gave him this draconian life sentence. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in a maximum security prison. And she gave it to him for his role in the Silk Road website, essentially for creating and allegedly running the Silk Road website. I say allegedly because I believe there were many people running it and that Ross's time on there was limited, but that's a whole other issue. He was convicted for narcotics trafficking, which has a life, and she gave him life for that. You don't always get life for that. She could have given him, I believe, a 10-year mandatory minimum on that. The prosecutors piled on the kingpin charge, which has its own life sentence, essentially saying a website host is a kingpin and controls everything that goes on the site, every buyer and seller. And you know, it's equating Ross with violent drug kingpins like Pablo Escobar and El Chapo. And it's absurd. It's like saying Jeff Bezos is a kingpin and that I'm in a conspiracy with him when I buy on Amazon. That's what it's like. And yet, she did. And then there's some other charges that add up to another 40 years if he lives 2 lifetimes. So here's this person who, you know, created a website with the idea of privacy. That was his motivation. It wasn't drugs. Drugs were sold on there, among many other things, including legal things, non-drug items. There was art, there was books, there was other items. Everything was allowed pretty much. It was up to buyers and sellers, except things that created a victim. It was all based on voluntary interaction. So for example, there was no child pornography permitted. There was no stolen property permitted. There were no violent services permitted. And one of the top level admins, Curtis Green, recently said publicly, he goes, yeah, my job all day long was to take things off that hurt people and get them off the site, like hacking software, for example. Things that might create a victim. Yeah. So the intention was a free market. It was not drugs. It turned out to be a lot of drugs. It was most commonly sold were small amounts of marijuana. That that was about at least 70% of what was sold on there, which of course is now, he's in a prison in Colorado where that is legal now. So here we are with this person who is a great person, and I know I'm his mother, but I can tell you that there's 100 letters on our website by people who know him that will, if you read those letters, you're like, what is he doing in there? This is terrible. And actually, we even have guards say to us and other prison personnel, what's he doing in here? So that's the story. Ross has appealed through the courts. He appealed to the Second Circuit. That was denied. He appealed to the Supreme Court. That was denied. And it was based on very important issues, privacy issues and due process issues that the Supreme Court chose not to address. And so now we are asking the President of the United States for a commuted sentence for Ross. This sentence, you know, no matter how you feel about Silk Road and Ross or any of that, most clear-thinking people who can see what should be are against this sentence. It is absolutely barbaric and unnecessary, and so many sentences right now in the system are excessive and people's lives are being destroyed, although the government is making lots of money, as are private prisons, as are lots of subsidiary industries off of mass incarceration, and it all works hand in hand. But lives are being destroyed. And if you're making money off of human lives, as far as I'm concerned, it's human trafficking, and that's what's going on here. And so we have a petition. It's at freeross.org/petition. Please sign the petition. Please tell everybody you know and It's anybody you can on social media. Tell them about the petition. Our goal is 500,000 signatures. That's what we're going for. This morning we were closing in on 70,000 and it had been less than 6 weeks. So I just we're going to keep pushing for that petition so that we can say, look, here's 500,000 people who say this is important. 500,000 people who say this sentence is wrong. Please consider commuting Ross's sentence. And so I just ask anyone who's watching this to go there, freeross.org/petition, and on freeross.org, there's tons of information, that's the other thing, about the case, because what you've read in the mainstream media, for the most part, not all, is very shallow. A lot of it is completely false, and you know, to get the true story, you have to dig a little. For instance, the government smeared Ross with murder for hire allegations, which they never charged at trial, and which recently were dropped in Maryland. There are no charges in existence for murder for hire, and yet they use that to deprive him of bail. They use it at sentencing, and they use it in the appeal, and the judge justified this horrible sentence with charges that were never brought to trial, never ruled on by a jury, and have been totally dropped across the board. So they got very good use out of those charges and for their purposes, and now Ross is sitting in a cage, and if something doesn't change, that will be for the rest of his life. So please help us.
Hi everyone. This is an exciting time for Bitcoin, isn't it? When I first learned about it, it was trading for 6 cents or so. By the way, I asked him if I should buy some, and he said, no, Mom, it's too volatile. Worst advice I've ever gotten, probably. It's incredible to see something increase 300,000-fold in value. Wow. I saw its potential back then to transform our world, and it hasn't disappointed. If anything, it has exceeded my expectations. Now there's a multitude of altcoins that have sprung up and found their niche. With dozens of coins experimenting with variations on Satoshi's invention, I have faith that we'll find the optimal path forward, learning from each other's mistakes and copying success. We are in the middle of a profound technological revolution. It's beautiful and awesome. I'm grateful just bearing witness to it. It's also a profound opportunity. Our subculture is having an outsized influence on society right now that will only grow. We are the future, my friends. I've been in prison for a few years now, so I'm, quote, out of the loop. But it's given me perspective as well. Now more than ever, we need a measure of self-reflection. Let us not forget our roots as we push ahead. Let us stay grounded in the principles that Bitcoin was incubated in. Decentralization, a focus on empowering individuals, and a community of love and respect. I'm proud of how we've flourished and optimistic that the best is yet to come. I'm fighting every day for my freedom, and I'm hopeful that one day I'll be out there with you. Ross.
I just need a second because it's just so commendable what you're doing to like help him and to help this situation. And I can tell you that we're going to do everything we can to get this message out to as many people as we can. Because to be perfectly honest, what it looks like to me is that they're using the whole drug thing as a scapegoat. They don't like the idea of Ross doing something good, like creating a free market for people to operate outside of the government. And this, to me, seems like with all the corruption and the the trumped-up charges,
all the stuff you can go into in this case.
It just seems like they're trying to scare people from being in the crypto environment and from having free markets and true crypto anarchy and liberty. And they're trying to dress it up with like, oh, it's all drug dealers, it's all criminals, murderers, when it's all just they're painting this false picture. Because they are scared of what it could really do for people like you and I.
I agree. And I could basically prove it. If you look at the other sentences of the other Silk Road defendants who are actual drug sellers, they never said Ross sold drugs at all. The longest sentence is 10 years.
Wow.
And it goes down from there of actual drug sellers, or at least convicted drug sellers. And the guy running Silk Road 2, which they said was identical and sold more drugs than Silk Road 1, He did no time. He did 13 days. He's a free man. We don't know where he is. He's kind of disappeared, but he never did any time. And yet, here's Ross, double life plus 40, because they got their trophy. And they said, we're going to use you as an example. That is not what our justice system is supposed to do.
Exactly.
You're supposed to be judged as an individual, and you're supposed to give an equal treatment under the law for similar offenses. And that has not happened. And we're all in peril because of this. It's not just Ross and our family that's impacted. And there's a lot of people in the Bitcoin space right now who are in jail because of various things about Bitcoin. I believe the whole case was about Bitcoin and got their attention through that. I think you're right on that. And so, you know, Chuck Schumer was behind it. He was on the Senate Finance Committee. The lead prosecutor was Plea. He was Chuck Schumer's special counsel for years, owed his job to him. The judge was recommended by Schumer to her position on the bench. And Ross was dragged from California to Schumer's state to be tried with no reason except they wanted him there. Tell me that is not a political case.
That's a conspiracy. That's an you don't like that's all public record, and it's proof of a conspiracy.
Totally, yeah. That's what happened.
And that's the level that we're
draw your own conclusions on that one.
Well, I'm so happy you're able to confer all of that in one interview, because people need to know about this kind of stuff.
They do.
Because people like Ross do not deserve this kind of crap, and no one does.
No, we all are in peril because of it.
This case is about a lot more than just Ross and our family. It's big. It's, as Scott Greenfield wrote in his blog, he said, it's the birth of law as applied to our digital future. Watch it as a spectator at your peril. There are so many important precedents and things happening right now in the courts, and Ross's case is a big part of that. And I urge you to learn more about it and to care about it, not for him, but for you and your future. So I love this picture of Ross and me. First of all, it proves I actually am his mother, and not a crazy lady running around, you know. You know, it's just wonderful to visit Ross in prison. I moved to Colorado to be near him so that he would have a lifeline to the real world, you know, the normal world, and that he would get visits every weekend when possible. Unfortunately, I just found out they're on lockdown this weekend, and hopefully they'll allow visits, but I don't think they're going to. And that's the kind of thing that's awful. But anyway.
You know, if you care about fairness, and you care about freedom, and you care about privacy, this case is setting precedent in the courts that will impact other court cases, that will impact all of our lives. And we're talking about privacy on the internet and the digital age, because we're going into the digital age, but the courts are making laws right now that are going to impact us going forward. And Ross's case is one of those major cases. And his sentence is also one of those sentences which they can use as precedent to do this to other people. So no matter how you feel about him and Silk Road, the sentence itself should be enough to have you sign the petition. Please sign the petition, freeross.org/petition, and help us convince President Trump to commute Ross's sentence.
It's a grassroots thing. I'm just me and our family and some friends. I do have help, but it's mostly just a few of us. We need to have it be grassroots, have it be, you know, a real effort here. So thank you so much. It's been great to be here.
Woo!
Give it up for Lyn Ulbricht, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Inspirational story. Please help her out, everyone.